Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Adventist Clarity Project, where we seek to clarify important themes, doctrines, and institutions within the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And I am your host, Jason Gonzalez, and today we are going to speak about the popular Adventist media and personalities and ministries. So that's what we're going to focus today: Adventist media, personalities, and ministries. And this is a topic that I promised last time that I will deliver, and today I'm delivering, and I'm very excited about this because I think it's a conversation good to have within the Adventist Church. So without further ado, let's begin. Alright, so most of you know that the popular Adventist media personalities and ministries are far-reaching, more than anything else we have within our church organization. All right, I guess most of you have seen any, either on your TV or your computer or your cell phone, whatever you are, or even from a podcast one not, any of these logos and ministries and TV personalities behind these channels. And today we are going to talk about them, and I'm going to do it by saying first that our church features a fascinating divide between well-known media personalities and behind-the-scenes scholars. And when I mean scholars, I mean experts or biblical scholars. And preachers and evangelists and the most visible, and they are popular, and of course they are the shapers of the church culture, practices, and its beliefs. The reason why I'm saying that is because, of course, they are. If people see them more, listen to them more, then they have a pretty good chance of shaping our culture, practices, and even our beliefs. And so today we are going to speak about that because I think this is rather interesting. And I say last time, the reason why is this now is because there is not only the traditional media, TV, and radio in the past, but also with the eve of any other, of all of these new ways of communication, be it video-based like YouTube, or being social media, or live streams and all of that. It is very, very much clear that the media ministries that have been there in the traditional way, now they have successfully done a transition into the more into the new ways of communication, and that's something that we are going to see today. All right, so there are many media ministries out there, and it's good for us to know that there are ministries that the church fosters and funds with church money, with tithes that members pay, but also there are independent Adventist media. They are funded privately. They do their own money collection by private donors, and they have pretty much freedom the way they run their operations and channels and structures. And so here you have a list of them, and I have here 3ABN, which it is TV and radio, but lately has been doing a lot on social media, and they produce a lot of things, and the core focus is on health, prophecy, music, family, and of course evangelism, right? And so, what is the global reach of 3VN? The global reach of 3VN is very high, meaning to say they are one of the top channels that people see and listen to out there using their devices, whatever those devices are. Not only because they have TV, but also because they have radio reach as well. The second one that I think is high, not very high, but still high, is Amazing Facts. This is TV and digital evangelism, right? So they focus on evangelism, prophecy, and apologetics, and the reach is very high. And of course, the Amazing Facts even has its own training school, I think in California, and I'm going to show that school in a little while. And so that school of 3ABN and any other of these branches that they have, it's pretty much far-reaching. The other one is It Is Written, and although It Is Written doesn't I don't think they have their own TV. I'm not sure about that, but they do partner with other Adventist media, including our official Adventist media, which is Hope Channel, that I'm going to show you in a while. So the other one is Secrets Unsealed, and Secrets Unsealed is TV and digital. When I mean digital, is YouTube and some other ways, and they focus on prophecy, theological study, and they have a moderate global reach, right? And I'm going to talk about the people that are behind all of these ministries in a while. But Amazing Discoveries is another one, and this focuses on science, prophecy, and current events. And so these ministries has significantly shaped Adventist discourse. Their programs reach millions globally and may influence how members understand church teachings. And so, just an example, and as a way for to test my listeners to what I'm saying, is that most of people have heard or listened to Mark Finley, Doc Batchelor, Walter Bate, Stephen Bohr, Alejandro Bullón in Spanish, Robert Costa, John Bradshaw, David Ashenrick, Jose Rojas. Not these days anymore, but I think he's retired, if I am not mistaken. Anyway, I don't listen to him that much, but in the past he was very famous. Derek Morris, that appears in Hub Channel, and Ron Kelly and Conrad Vine, which are two figures that are creeping into the space now, and they are being listened a lot in many ways. And so let's talk about, for example, 3AV, and that features most of these people not only in their English network but also in their other language networks, which is Spanish and I don't know, French, whatnot, right? And I think they have even German, if I am not mistaken. So these people are very popular because they normally are featured not only in our Hope channel but also in all our media, right? 3AVN and the rest that I have been telling you about. And so it is clear that 3AVN, for example, and I have here, you can see all the logos that I am referring to: 3AVM, Light Better, and Amazing Facts, and Amazing Discoveries, and Secrets Unsealed, or Secrets Unsealed Ministry, and of course, most of these will have reach on social media, Facebook and YouTube, and all of these platforms, right? So they are constantly offering something in all these social media platforms, including YouTube, which is one of the big ones where people are listening things now or are watching things now. And so uh, I am going to suggest here a gap, right? We need to understand why there is a gap between the experts, right, and these media personalities, right? And of course, this is a knowledge gap. I would call that a knowledge gap. And one of the first thing is media accessibility, right? Media personalities offer easy to consume content with broad appeal. And on the other side, you have the academics and the experts in our church who they normally they produce scholarly and academic work that often requires theological background and critical thinking, right? And so that's one of the reasons it's not far reaching, unlike this media accessibility of all these ministries that we know and I have shown you before. So the other one is the communication style, right? So these popular speakers use simpler language and emotional appeals. And I remember I am from Colombia, and I remember listening to Alejandro Bullón and his very soft and tender preaching, and very appealing to the ears of those listening. And so the other thing is the resource distribution, right? So media ministries typically receive more funding than academic initiatives. And that's true, for example, of 3AVN and Amazing Facts. These two media outlets have a big, uh, a big funding organization, and they have millions of dollars that they receive from donors. So they have the money to produce all of these massively. And so the cycle perpetuates, right? The separation between popular and academic Adventist voices, they are normally separated because the popular are far reaching, and they are easy to get, and they are easy to understand, whereas the academic, they are not so easy and a little bit complex for people to understand. So, of course, that is one of the reasons why we have that. Um, so let's compare the influence, right? Let's compare the influence and recognition of both. So let's talk about the popular evangelist. I'm going to show some of those names that I show in the beginning, but I'm going to come back to them sometime after my presentation here. So these popular evangelists, they have wide name recognition. They have large social media following. They regular. They have regular media appearances. They have simplified messaging, and they are evangelism. Their content is evangelistic focused, right? Whereas the academic scholars they have limited public recognition. They are respected only within their institutions that they work. The publications are normally in specialized journals, and they have nuanced theological approaches, and their research oriented contributions normally don't get as much coverage as, I don't know, one of these media people out there. And so, just to test you on this, let me quiz you. If you know any of these, have you ever heard any of these names that I have here? Josh Knight, have you heard about him? I believe many of you might have read his books. What about Richard Davidson? Do you know he's a very important scholar in our Adventist church? Do you know who he is and where is he located? Where does he work? Right? Did you know that he works at Andrews and he's a very respected professor at Andrews? Did you know John Pauline that now works in Loma Linda, and his expertise is known for his emphasis on the book of Revelation, right? Or apocalyptic literature. Did you know John Peckham, which has been publishing many books, and it's been gaining more traction now, but uh, have you heard about him, right? And many of these people, they have been um, the ones that write the Sabbath School Guide, right? Have you heard about Ranko Stefanovic, which also focuses on Revelation? Have you heard about Gerhard Hazel, which he died a long time ago, but he was a very consequential theologian in the Adventist Church, not only in the Adventist Church but outside the Adventist Church. Have you heard about Hans Larondale, right? A very good theologian. He was, for many, the best theologian in the 20th century of the Adventist Church, and he died in 2011. Have you heard about him, right? Have you heard about Herbert Douglas, who died in 2014? Have you heard about Jiri Moscala? Have you heard about Joanne Davidson, which is the wife of Richard Davidson? Have you heard about Angel Manuel Rodriguez? Probably those who speak Spanish, they have known about him, but have you seen him? I know he's retired now, but have you seen him speaking often in our Adventist media? Have you heard about Jacques Ducan? Right? I think he's French. And have you heard him speaking? And he's famous. Can you know what is his expertise? Uh, have you heard about Denis Fortin, a very good Adventist historian and um, historical theological scholar? Have you heard about, I don't know, one more, Michael Campbell, which is another historian, tends to be a little bit popular in some areas in the US, but not much around the world. And so there is this idea that I have to clear is popularity versus academic influence, right? Some people are well known among church members through the books and speaking engagements, with others, while others exert significant influence primarily within academic and theological or scientific circles within the Adventist Church. So but most scholars have never been popular on Adventist media. So that's the reality. Most of them have never been in our Adventist media. Probably they were in the past. I don't know if any of them were in the past. Of course, but I wonder if any of them were um, famous, right? So most academics within the SDA Church are not popular among the membership. The membership do not know who they are, so they don't have the chance to probably listen or read what they produce. And so these are the hidden scholars of Adventism, right? They are pioneering theologians like Gerhard Hazel and Hans Arundel and Herbert Douglas, who were consequential for the constructing and advancement of our theology, but people have no idea who they are. Contemporary theologians, scholars like Richard Davidson, John Peckham, and John Pauline are barely known. International academics like Angel Rodriguez and Jacques Docan and Jiri Moscala, who are not US citizens, but they are still consequential. And have you heard about them, right? Church historians like George Knight, Dennis Fortin, Gilbert Valentine, Michael Gamble. Despite the profound theological contributions, these scholars remain largely unknown to the average church member. And their work, even though their work shapes official church positions and educational materials, they are not popular. And there is a very good reason for that, and I will come to that discussion. But let me continue testing you on this because I think this is my point today. Let me continue testing my audience in this. Have you heard about the Biblical Research Institute, which I spoke about before? Do you know that this is a very important institution for promoting our theological integrity and advancing and studying our theology and bringing clarity and apologetics to our understanding of Scripture? Do you know the Adventist Theological Society, right? Do you know that they publish two journals? The Journal of the Adventist Theological Society and Perspective Digest. Do you know Adventist Archives? There is, if you want to find primary sources of our Adventist pioneers and former leaders who have all passed away, do you know where to find it? Adventist Archives. Do you know that there is an Adventist Society for Religious Studies? Do you know that there is a Journal of Adventist Education out there? Do you know that there is an association of Adventist historians and good Adventist historians who have done a lot to understand our church history? Do you know the Adventist scholars? Who are they, right? And do you know our magazines and periodicals? I mean, have you read Ministry, which is an international journal for pastors? Have you read Elders Magazine, which gets printed and we pastors we are given that magazine and we have to distribute it, or we don't have to distribute it, but we hopefully should distribute it in our church members. Do you know Liberty Magazine, which focuses on religious liberty issues? Do you know Elders Digest, uh, or Elder Magazine, which I think is the same thing? Do you know that the Adventist Health Ministries has also a website when they produce a lot of things for in terms of health? And the thing is that scholarly resources, they are in the shadows. They are in the shadows. And so these academic journals that I have been talking to you, these educational publications, these research resources that all of us have, like the Biblical Research Institute, these professional associations that we have, these resources offer deep theological insights, yet remain unfamiliar to most church members. And why is that so? And that's something that we should discuss. So I think this is the way which I will conclude with my presentation of today, and is why is this happening and what is the reason behind this problem. All right, so I am aware that probably one of the ways in which this can change is by our scholars making sure that they have time to produce the kind of media that people are consuming these days. And not because I think they should be the only ones who should be heard and seen, right? Not because I think that. I believe our popular evangelists, they have a big role when it comes to not only evangelizing, expanding our Adventist mission, and reaching to the world, but also because they do have pretty good way to be successful in explaining our explaining the gospel, right? And we know of the Bible that we have the priesthood of all believers, but there is something I want to say about that. We know that Paul highlights the role of teachers in the body of the church. Whenever he speaks, not only in the book of Corinthians and even Ephesians, about those gifts, spiritual gifts given to the church for the building up of the church, he talks about teachers very often. And it's because teaching is very, very important. And I will suggest that teaching is also a something that should be studied, that should be learned. Not all of us are good teachers. But also, I will suggest that our teachers are those academic and those scholars who have dedicated a lot of time in studying the subject matter in which they are experts. If their expertise is Old Testament or apocalyptic literature, I mean to say the book of Revelation and Daniel and other apocalyptic literature in the Bible, then they should play a important role in the explanation of those topics. And so I will suggest that that is something they need to do. They need to bring this academic stuff that they are producing from that very close circle of academy and research, and make it so that people, all people could understand what they are trying to say, right? They should strip all of that academic language and make it so that normal people, the most um, basic listener, and what I mean by basic listener is somebody who probably doesn't have that academic baggage with them. And so that's something that I think it should be done, right? And so that would imply that the church should have, and our institutions should have, a way to make possible that they have enough resources and ways to um, massify their academic the academic findings, and the way they are producing theology. Because, okay, so I will speak about my personal case. My emphasis is Old Testament and ancient Jewish literature. I should be able, although probably I'm not, and I haven't produced any uh, scholarly, apart from papers that I haven't published, or I am in the process of publishing. I I should be able to explain a little bit of um, the prophetic books, right? To explain the theology behind it, because that's what I did study. I should be able to explain what happened to our prophetic activity. What happened to the prophetic activity during the Persian control of Israel, and the early Persian, but also the Babylonian, which we have prophets like Ezekiel during the exile, and we have Jeremiah, right? And we have, after the exilic times, we have Zechariah, we have all of those prophets that, and I should be able to explain that because that was my main focus, right? And so in that, I will take an example, and I will just go back to the names that people normally listen to. So I will start for Mark Finley, for example. Mark Finley is, I think he has a doctorate ministry, if I am not mistaken. A doctorate ministry is a professional program, I think, designed for, what I understand is designed for helping pastors to be more successful in their church ministry. But they are not academic, right? And so, although I believe Mark Finley is a well and respected, until today, is a well respected preacher and evangelist, I believe that he and people who are his um, role should give a little bit of deference, right, to the people who are actually experts in the subject matter that he sometimes preaches about. And I know he's normally preaching about, you know, um, the gospel, but yes, the book of Revelation and the great controversy and all of that. And I wonder if he should not only try to study the production of our scholars, which I think he does, but also I think he should be a little bit deference to those who are truly experts in the area. Let's talk about Doc Batchelor, and this is a very interesting figure that I think it is good to analyze. Right, he has a powerful personal story, and that's great. But he's so popular in our Adventist media that people look to him to understand the book of Revelation and Daniel. And I will suggest that he doesn't have the training nor the skills to deal with these topics that he likes to deal with. And his methodology of interpretation hasn't changed. I don't know, it's a very traditional way of interpreting the Bible uh, that we used to have back in the beginning of the church. movement. What I'm trying to suggest is, since we believe in the progressive revelation and understanding of the Bible, I believe that the church, as we have advanced all these years, we should be in pretty good um, um, advantage to have better and more um, advanced explanations to the doctrines and to the things that we say about the book of Revelation or the book of Daniel. There has been so much study out there done by Adventists that will make so much of a difference in the way we communicate our message today. Why? Because these people have dedicated entire chunks of their lives to study those things. There have been people like John Pauline who have dedicated a lot to study the book of Revelation, and um, at some length the book of Daniel. All right. So that's Doug Batchelor, right? He likes to speak about the book of Revelation, and I understand that he, reads the Great Controversy and all of that, and all of Ellen G. White books. But since we believe that Ellen G. White is not the final authority when it comes to doctrine, sometimes it seems as though she is the final authority, right? And we want to stand down, right, and to strip down any interpretation that might not be reflecting Ellen G. White's perspective on certain topics. And I believe that's a huge mistake, because we believe in the progression of revelation, right? And so even if something is not quite as Ellen G. White explains, I think it's important for them to understand and acknowledge that and advance in that way, because we should advance in that way. Yeah, I am not speaking here as a progressive in the uh, I don't know uh, in the meaning of that term progressive, but I think it's because we actually believe in the progressive part of Revelation, right? So let's speak about Walter Veit. This man, he is a very interesting case, and I have to say why I think that. His expertise, and I think he is a zoologist, if I am not mistaken, and I think he's got a PhD in zoology from South Africa, and he used to teach in a very popular Adventist, not Adventist, sorry, university in South Africa. I think the University of Stellenbosch, if I am not mistaken, or any, I mean, I don't remember, right? But this man has taken on his shoulder to switch his expertise towards biblical theology. And you see him with this channel that he has, Amazing Discoveries. And he has another YouTube channel. And I think it's WhatsApp Prof, something like WhatsApp Professor, something like that, where he will speak about different things. And lately he has been speaking about different books in the Bible. And I heard last time he was speaking about the book of Zechariah. And I was appalled by the way he's interpreting Zechariah, right? And one example that I am bringing today is his interpretation on the horses in the book of Zechariah. As he essentially said that those horses are just the same, they should have the same interpretation as the book of Revelation. And that is in and of itself wrong, right? Because the book of Zechariah has a very different historical context and a very different audience and a very different time than the book of Revelation, right? So for him to come and say those things without blinking, I think is a little bit of a stretch and appalling. And so I will come back to him. I will dedicate one specific episode of The Bachelor and Walter Bate and some of these that I have here. All right. So the one I have here also is Stephen Bourne. Right, he is very popular among Hispanics and among people here in the U.S., but also Hispanics and even in Africa. And I think he works with these Secrets Unsealed. Now I have to say Stephen Bourne he has academy, he has study, right? But he has not, he has a very, from my perception, he has a very naive way of interpreting the Bible, right? Very literal reading of the biblical text. And I know he has the skills. He has the skills. But I wonder, well, he has, I think he did a master's in theology. I don't think he ever finished doctor or ministry or any other. But he's very popular, right? And so I wonder if he needs a little bit of update on that, or give deference to people who did have their lives dedicated to the study, for example, of the book of Revelation or the book of Genesis, or I don't know, the book of Daniel. Let's speak about Alejandro Bullón, good evangelist. I think he's been pretty successful being an evangelist, but I think I think he's almost retiring. He's quite an old person now. But back in the day, he was, very successful, and I don't have too much of a criticism of what he does or what he did. But I think that people like him should study more the academic side of things, right? In the same vein, I can say the same thing about Robin Costa. John Bradshaw is a very interesting case, right? He works with It Is Written. I believe he has education, and he's a he delivers messages, good messages. But I wonder though, he needs a little bit more theological training, or reflect that theological training in his preaching. Um, in that list, David Ashenrick, don't have too much to say about him. Jose Rojas, he's no longer out there, so not much to say about him. Derek Morris, I believe he's got education, but fine, right? That much to say about him. Ron Kelly is a very interesting case, right? Because he's got education, but not education in academic education. And this the problem with many of these speakers is they don't have the humility, in my opinion, to accept that they are not experts in in the very thing that they try to speak about, right? They don't have the humility to say, hey, I am not an expert in this. And even our some of our Adventist leaders out there, they don't have the humility, and some of them, they will only say that they only have come to this conclusion by their own study of the Bible. And I will suggest that that is a problem, because yes, we believe that most of us are able to come to the Bible and receive and understand the message of God through the Bible, right? And yet, and yet, uh, many of us should recognize that the Bible sometimes is a hard book to understand. It has hard, very complicated areas to understand, and in we need people who will study those things with all the best methods out there, and come up with better answers, right? But yet, many of these people do not recognize that, and I've never seen them saying those things in their preachings, or I don't know, in their interventions. So that's my problem with this. Contravine is in this case as well, because he's gaining a lot of popularity because of the way his message today. But the way he interprets the events, the apocalyptic events of the day, I believe they need a little bit more. Needs to be a little bit more conscious on his explanations of that. And I will come back to him, because I will dedicate to some of these people a specific and their methodologies and their way that they interpret the Bible. I will dedicate you know, one episode to some of them, not all of them, but for sure, Todo Bachelor, Walter Bates, Stephen Bohr, Conrad Mine, and a few other that I will bring here. So, so let's speak about Amazing Discoveries. Is again, Amazing Discoveries is by Walter Bate, and he speaks about things that he's an expert, right? And he essentially his way of explaining the Bible is going back right to Ellen G. White, straight to Ellen G. White to make his point, and literally do hermeneutics of Ellen G. White writings. Uh, I don't know if that is a good methodology, and I don't even think that even Ellen G. White will will uphold that kind of methodology today, right? She will tell, just why don't you study the Bible instead of trying to do exegesis of my writings? Not to say that there are expert people in Ellen G. White that do that, right? But they are experts in historical theology and our development, like our historians and theologians. Um, um, so that's the problem, right? Doug Batchelor in the same vein, and he even has is this Center of Evangelism, EFCOE, where he trains people and they follow the same sort of methodologies, very old traditional methodologies. I don't have any problem with them. Some of them are good, but they need to be polished, right? And this is what our theologians have done. They have polished these things. So that's my critique of some of that, theologians. And so I will suggest that two things should happen. First, these preachers should understand, have a little bit of humility, and understand that they are not experts in the area that they are trying to speak, because they didn't have the time, nor did they study that, but also because there are other people who might be better equipped to explain those things better. The problem is that even those people who will be better to explain those things, they are not speaking to the normal church members out there. They are too academy focused, and so we should bring them out of those academies and give them more time. And I know they are busy in the universities and in their roles in the Biblical Research Institute, but we are structured in a way that they should have a good role, right? Not the entire role, but a good part of the role, right? So so to my people out there, these names here and others. I mean, I am sorry for those theologians that I didn't include in this list, but I have so many friends that I know, right? And from many parts of the world. I am aware that there are good theologians from Africa as well, from Asia, and from South America, Central America, that they deserve to be here, and even from here. But I mean, I am just making an example and a quiz here so that we know what I'm saying, that I am speaking about. All right. So this has been my episode for today, and thank you very much for joining. And this is the Adventist Clarity Project, and I will invite you to subscribe to my channel, to follow me and listen to my podcast either on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcast. And for those who follow YouTube or any of those Spotify or Apple Podcasts, follow me, subscribe to my channel, and share this with your friends out there, so that they will be able to listen to this if you think they could be interested. All right, this is the Adventist Clarity Project, a podcast that seeks to bring clarity to important themes, doctrines, and institutions within the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And this is your host, Jason Gonzalez. Bye bye. Thank you very much.